The 100 Years' War, a war from 1337 to 1453, addressing a dispute between the longtime enemies France and England, who fought over who should be the King of France. Hello and welcome to my podcast, Gruesome Occurrences and Revolutions, aka G.O.R. Today I will walk you through and break down the 100 Years' War. This war basically began when England's King Edward III claimed he should become the new King of France. The English had owned some French territory for many years, and because the previous French king had no sons, Edward believed he should inherit the French throne. So, to make a long story short, he wanted to become the King of France because the previous king had no heirs, and Edward already owned some French land. Not surprisingly, the French king Philip VI refused to give up the throne which he had just received. Philip had a similar lineage, and he was the new king anyways. This quarrel was essentially the start of what we now call today the 100 Years' War, which actually lasted 116 years. In this war, there were three major battles, all of which were fought on French grounds. The Battle of Crécy in 1346, the Battle of Poitiers in 1356, and the Battle of Agincourt in 1415. Let's talk strategy. The English had an incredibly strong and novel weapon that the French could not match, the longbow. They also used traditional unmounted and mounted soldiers, aka knights. The French, on the other hand, had an inferior crossbow which reloaded at a much slower speed and had less power and range compared to the longbow. They also used mounted and dismounted knights. Now let's have a look at our timeline. Our first major battle was the Battle of Crécy in 1346. In this battle, the English were outnumbered by 2,000 troops. The French took both crossbowmen and dismounted knights. They lost anyway due to the English longbow. In the next fight, the Battle of Poitiers in 1356, the English are again outnumbered and win because of their dreaded longbow. The last battle, the Battle of Agincourt on St. Crispin's Day, October 25, 1415, the English, who were trying to evade the French and get to Calais, were outnumbered by the French 5-1. The field that they fought on, fortunately for the English, was covered in mud, which would slow the French down. At the end of the battle, the English won because they killed lots of French with their longbow, and the stakes which they had placed in the ground stopped the charge of the mounted knights. The French also had a very hard time in combat because of their mass and number. There were so many French that they couldn't even fall when they died. Even though the English won all three major battles, the French won the war and regained control of their territory. They won primarily because throughout the century they had time to build up a strong military and strong defense during their non-fighting periods of the war. They also had time to build a better economy. The 100 Years' War was very important to modern-day society, even in America. Think of how much the culture of the English would have changed had they obtained the French land. Then later, in the 18th century, when the American colonies were founded, we would also have a great deal of French culture. And if the French had lost the 100 Years' War, the American colonies would have lost the Revolutionary War because there would be no French allies.